Hi, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Empowering Stories That Inspire Change, the video series with ordinary people sharing extraordinary stories about their transformational moments in life. And today we are featuring the amazing Bart Milatz. Hi, Bart.
Hi, good morning, Nicolene. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine, thanks. So great to have you.
It's awesome to be here. I'm very excited.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So please introduce yourself.
So, hi everyone. My name is Bart Milatz. I'm a human behavioral specialist. So, what that means is I find out what people do and why they do it and how they can actually change it. So, it's basically I teach life skills that you don't learn at school.
That's amazing. There are so many people who need this. I mean, our kids need it, and many adults need it as well. So let's dive into your story. Could you take us back to the time before your transformational moment?
Absolutely. So, I was about 7 years old. Um, Everything was perfect. I had two brothers. My health was great. Everything was fine. But then my little sister was born, and I was about 7, 8 years old. And in that period, my mother started to become suicidal. So it was a really tough period for me. You know, my mother, she would cut herself, take medicines to harm herself, try to jump in front of the trains. And, it was not just for one time. She tried it over a period of 12 years. So it was a really, really tough period.
Oh my
But then
goodness.
I was about 14 years old, and my father took her into the house to help her to recover. But that time she locked herself in her room, and she took about 5 bottles of medications. So we had to call the ambulance to pump her stomach out and to open the door also because she locked the door from the inside.
Oh.
And I wanted to see what was going on upstairs. So I walked upstairs and I saw the ambulance. They were bringing the bed to take people to the car.
Yeah, yeah.
And I saw my mother laying half dead on the bed. And her face looked at me with a kind of stare like, Bart, life doesn't matter. You're going to die anyway. And in that moment, I decided, no, Mom, I'm going to make something amazing from my life. I don't know how, I don't know what, but I'm going to do something amazing. So that took my mom away. And that decision in that moment prompted me to move to Australia, to the other side of the world, when I was 17 years old. I thought, you know what, I have to get away from this. I'm going to build a new life, start again, and make my life amazing.
Wow. You were 14 when this happened?
14, yeah. 8.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I have a 14-year-old son. I cannot believe what that must have been like for you to be in this situation. How did that make you feel?
At the moment, it was hard, but now I'm really grateful that it happened because in that moment, I made a decision to change my life. I didn't wish that it didn't happen. I'm really grateful it happened because if it didn't happen, I don't know what kind of life I will have right now. Probably a boring life, staying at home, going for a job and having the normal life like everyone else is living. So I'm really grateful it happened. Yeah.
That's so amazing because I speak to so many people who go through any adversity. I mean, a burnout situation or losing a loved one or anything, and most of them say, "I'm grateful it happened because it added something to my life." And like you said just now, that if it wouldn't have happened, you would have had a boring life. So you moved to Australia when you were 17?
Yeah, yeah. I just finished high
And
school. And during all these years, I worked very hard to save up money to move there. Because I asked my dad, can I move to Australia? He said, sure, you can go, but you have to pay it by yourself. It's kind of the
why Australia?
Why Australia? That's a really good question. My dad backpacked around the world when he was about 21. So during, when we had dinner, he was telling all these wonderful stories about his adventures around the world. So he had a little cowboy hat, and when we had dinner, he will take off his hat and take out a story from the hat.
Oh,
So
that's great.
yeah, it was. He had stories about Australia, Thailand, New Zealand. And I thought, wow, Australia, it must be amazing there. So that's one of the reasons why I chose that country. And also because if you look at the world, the Netherlands is here and Australia
Yeah,
is here,
yeah, definitely.
as far away as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, would you say it was running away from your life here?
It was a combination of both, running away from that, but also running towards something more amazing. Because I also quickly learned that you can't escape your problems, even though you are on the other side of the world. You will get new problems, which I got after a few years in Australia.
Oh, really? Yeah, it's true. You always take yourself with you. That's my experience anyway. You, no matter where you are and where you run to, you always bring yourself and your issues and your problems. So they will come up in any other way. So what happened during your time in Australia?
Well, I did what everyone else told me to do, go to university, get a good job. So in order to pay for university, I had two full-time jobs. I was subleasing my condominium in Sydney with 6 girls in a two-bedroom apartment. And I really wanted to live in Australia. So I applied for permanent residency in Australia because I had all the things, good English skills, a degree, a job.
Mm.
But for that test, in order for you to receive permanent residency, you must be in perfect health. So you have to do a blood test, a medical test. And from that came the result that I am HIV positive.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
No, no, it's,
Oh,
yeah. At the
no,
moment,
but it meant you couldn't stay in Australia, I guess.
yeah, they gave me 1 week and they said, sorry, visa rejected, go out.
A
You have
week?
to leave. Yeah, yeah.
Ah, that's harsh.
It was, yeah. I felt that it was discrimination, it was unfair. Um, and I posted my frustrations, on Facebook, like Australia, they're fucked up and
Yeah.
racist and they discriminate. So as a result of that, I also lost a lot of my Australian friends because they rather supported their country instead of a friend. But 2 years before I became HIV positive, I was doing a lot of Tony Robbins seminars. I've been to
Mhm,
all of his programs.
mhm.
So I thought, big state, I mean, go for it. So I thought I'm going to use this as an opportunity. So I used it as an opportunity to move to Thailand and to build up a new life there.
Oh, wow, good for you. Good for you. So I mean, what was that like to leave your life in Australia?
It was really tough at the time, to be honest,
Yeah,
because I did what everyone told me to do: go to university, get a job, work hard. I did all of that.
yeah.
For me, that just didn't work. I was trying to be someone that I'm not, and yeah, maybe that's also one of the reasons that happened, to lead me back to be my authentic self.
And how did you find out that you were trying to be something that you're not?
I learned that only really recently. So I moved to Thailand, and I thought positive thinking, I go for it. At the time, I was also making thousands of dollars online with my books and programs. So I didn't really have to work. But I was still longing for a relationship. So every person I met, after a while, you have to tell them, hey, I'm HIV positive. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
And most of the people rejected me for that. They said, no, sorry, let's just be friends. And then they will block me or not talk with me anymore. So my self-worth went, mwah, mwah, mwah.
Oh, yeah, yeah, of
But
course.
then at a moment, there was one guy, he started to accept me. He wanted to, come to my room to have a date. And I said, well, I'm HIV positive. Are you okay with it? And he said, sure, no problem. But, can I bring some ice? And I thought, ice? Like, what's that? And in Thailand, it's really hot. So they put ice in their drinks, the ice cubes. They put ice in beer and wine.
Yeah.
So I thought, yeah, sure, bring the ice and bring the ice cubes. I have beer and wine. So he came to my room and he didn't have any bags with him. Ice is quite big, like the
Yeah.
ice.
Yeah.
So I said, where's the ice? And he took out a little package of what seemed like little crystals. And he started to smoke it, and I was really confused, like, what is that? It looked like the Indian smell pipe, the shisha.
Yeah, yeah.
Like a really long pipe that they use in Indian restaurants. I thought it's something like that.
Yeah.
So I had 2 inhales, and I was high as fuck.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I didn't realize that it was a drug called crystal meth. And, we had a good time that night, and a couple of weeks later, another guy said the same thing. Hey, can I come to your room? Can I bring ice? And I thought, okay, that's fun. So I did that every couple of months. But then after 6 months, my face started to change. Like my eyes were like here, my skin started to be wrinkly. And then I realized, okay, this is not a smoking pipe. This is something else.
Yeah.
So I Googled ice, and turns out it was crystal meth. So I realized, okay, I am kind of addicted. No.
Were you addicted?
For my definition, I would say so. I mean, I wasn't doing it every day, but every few months.
Mm-hmm.
And I have really high standards for myself. So even doing that every couple of months, I would label an addiction.
Yeah.
But addiction is just a label. Like if I don't drink any alcohol and you drink 1 glass of wine every night, I might label you an alcoholic. Mm-hmm. But if you meet someone who drinks a bottle of wine every night, you will label that person an alcoholic. It's just a label. But for my definition, I would say it was an addiction.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did how did it make you feel? I mean, you did that. You didn't even know what it was, but you said you were high as fuck. But how did you feel at the moment and afterwards?
At that moment, I felt kind of invincible. I just had that experience from Australia being rejected, and now all of these people, they would suddenly accept me, and I put quotes there because they didn't really accept me. They just wanted my money and the drugs, and the next day they were gone.
Yeah, of course, and because oh God, I cannot even begin to imagine what it's like to, first of all, to get diagnosed with HIV positive, then to be rejected because of it. I mean, why on earth would you reject a person for that reason?
Ignorance, lack of education.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I think there are and of course you know much better than I do, but I think so many people don't have a clue about HIV positive people. I mean, they don't know what to do, what to say, how you get it. So many people don't know. Yeah. So what would you say is the main prejudice you encounter when you tell people?
The main prejudice is that you get it if you are a slut.
Okay, yeah.
So at the time in Australia, I was really careful, always checking, when I had sex to check the condom. Mm-hmm. And I actually got HIV through the dentist.
Really?
So I had a boyfriend at the time, and he was positive, but we always had safe sex. Mm-hmm. But one time we went to the dentist to clean, to polish, to scale our teeth, just to do that. And he was going before me for the appointment, and I was straight after him. So, if you clean and scale your teeth, there's a little bit of blood there.
Yeah.
So I think that the dentist didn't sterilize the equipment properly, because that night I felt someone is stabbing swords through my body. I was getting a fever, but the next day it was fine. So when I find out I'm positive, my first thought was, that's not possible because I'm not a slut. I'm not fucking around. Yeah. I'm always careful. And even when I told my family, my dad said, you can't take your responsibility. You're a slut just fucking around and not being careful. I knew you would do that. Later, he apologized for that, but that was his initial reaction. And we didn't talk for many months. Oh. And also another judgment is that, you can get sick from contact with me, which is a lie. Like,
It's not true.
I'm on medications. It's this pill. See how tiny it is?
Oh, wow.
1 pill a night. I can't transmit it. My immune system is healthy. And I can't make anyone sick with that.
No, but it's only unless, I mean, that's what I know, and perhaps that's a lie as well. I don't know, but I would love to test it with you. The
Yeah.
only thing that could be a risk is that if your blood gets in touch with my blood, right?
Well, even then, because my blood levels is called undetectable, which is you can't detect the virus in your blood. So
Okay.
even if we had blood contact, you can't get sick from me, which is why
Okay.
the World Health Organization has these guidelines that everyone who has HIV should take these pills so they can't transmit the disease to anyone else.
Mm.
But some people still have this stigma from the 1980s that, hey, you got AIDS, you're gonna die. You have
Yeah.
HIV, you're gonna die.
Yeah.
This is not true anymore.
No, no, thank God. Thank
Yeah.
God they found great medication and ways to well, and of course it's not to be cured, but
Mhm.
it's
It's manageable. Yeah.
yeah, it's manageable, it's controllable, and I think it's so important that people like you speak up about this and let the world know what they don't know, because it's there's so much ignorance, and for some reason it's always easier to stick to a prejudice or a judgment
Mhm.
without really knowing the truth. And I think so many people still believe that being in touch with an HIV positive person can infect them. How does this affect you as a person?
To be honest, I believe that the world is a reflection of yourself. So when people were rejecting me, I was rejecting me. I didn't
Mm,
accept it for myself. And the world around me perfectly reflected that. But as soon as I accepted it for myself, for some reason, people around me started to accept it. And it's kind of a paradox because you want other people to accept you first. But if they would have done that, I would believe that they would have lied because it wasn't congruent with what I was thinking. So I learned quickly that I accepted and people accepted it. And maybe one person in 100 who didn't accept it, it didn't bother me anymore. It was fine. I wasn't angry. I just said, okay, that's fine. Good luck and see you later.
yeah, yeah, that's for sure. You know, it's always this way when people do not resonate with you
Yeah.
for some reason, and they kind of will either reject you or are not interested. Well, that's fine. Just
That's fine.
move on. There are so many people who are.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, what a life you've lived so far.
Absolutely. And yeah, it took a long time to get there because HIV is kind of a stigma and drugs as well. Like
Yeah.
drugs is illegal in many countries. Um, and and yeah, people have this image in their mind that people who are on drugs, they're fucked up and
Yeah.
stupid and they're ignorant. But I was well educated, and still I learned from Dr. John Demartini that you don't have an addiction without a subdiction. So in maths, you have adding up, the plus sign, and you
Yeah.
have minus, the subtraction. So
Yeah.
he calls it addiction and subdiction. So addictions come from subdictions, which are events in your life that were really painful that you are running away from, which was, being rejected a permanent residency application in Australia.
Yeah.
So once I solved that, my addiction started to disappear over a period of time.
Wow, what did you do to solve that feeling of rejection? How did you deal with that?
Well, basically, when you say that you are being rejected, it's a one-sided point of view because the world is always in balance. So I was looking, okay, at the moment that Australia rejected me, who accepted me to bring them back into balance because I thought I lost something. But science shows you cannot create or destroy energy, it just transforms the way it is expressed. So instead of me blaming myself and blaming Australia, I just realized that it's just transforming in another way.
Mm.
At the time, I reconnected with my mom, so she accepted me. Certain friends accepted me. I accepted myself again. So I saw the balance between rejection and acceptance. And
Yeah.
once I got it into balance, the sub-addiction was gone. And as a result, later on, my addiction as well.
Because there are so many addictions, right? I mean, we always think of addiction like alcohol or cocaine, or in your case, crystal meth.
Yeah.
But there are so many addictions. It's working, running, I don't know, all kinds of things that we consider to be okay,
Yeah.
but they are an addiction.
Yeah. Yeah, most people have between 7 and 10 addictions. Yeah, like some of them you said, but also shopping,
Yeah,
sex, wanting to be right all the time,
yeah,
going to work. So the addiction of stability, of certainty.
yeah.
Uh, I have an addiction also to travel. So I just came back from South Africa, America. Earlier in this year, I went to Thailand again, to South America with my mom. So that's kind of an addiction.
Yeah,
Yeah, addiction is just a label. Like
yeah,
someone who travels full time doesn't label me an addiction. But for example, my brother labels me a travel addict because he doesn't travel.
yeah. So how did you end up? I mean, you were in Thailand,
Yeah.
and you were, well, breaking with the addiction,
Mm-hmm.
and then what happened?
So basically in Thailand, I also became a teacher because all of these skills that I was missing from my education, I never had education about drugs. I never had education about how to manage your money. I didn't have education how to deal with a suicidal mother.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
who gets that? I mean,
Yeah.
no one gets education around that.
So that created a void in me to share what I know to help people prevent that, or once they have those problems, to deal with it. So I became a teacher at a school in Thailand. I was teaching English and maths, but basically I was kind of not following their system, not following the books. I was creating my own lessons. So we were making vision boards like, hey, what do you want to be in the next year? And make posters. I was teaching them how to set goals, how to be healthy. I was even teaching them about drugs, like, drugs is not just pink and purple. It can also be transparent, like water. So just to help these people when they encounter it, how to deal with it.
Yeah.
So I did it for a few years. And then earlier this year, the directors of the school changed. So we had a summer break in March and April. And before the summer break, I asked the staff, like, are you happy with me as a teacher? And they said, absolutely. So, I booked a flight to Chile, to South America with my mom, and came back to Thailand after that to resume the new school year.
Mm-hmm.
Then they said, sorry, you cannot come back. And I'm like, why? They said, you are a bad teacher.
No.
Yeah.
Why did they think you were a bad teacher all of a sudden?
Well, they said my classes were too noisy, which was true. They said I wasn't following the books. But, in Thailand, the culture is also to be quiet. So they weren't exactly giving more feedback about that. I was asking for it because I want to be a good teacher. Like, let me know so I could change my lessons. But turned out the directors of the school changed during the summer break. So the old director was 65. I had a good relationship with him. And the new director was this 25-year-old kid. And turns out he got a bribe from a teacher agency. He got some cash to employ teachers from that agency. So now there is a teacher from Russia teaching my position, basically, and a teacher from the Philippines. But, I was instantly okay with it. I knew that it was an opportunity for me to move on and do something else.
So did you leave Thailand?
Yes, I still stayed for a month or so
Mm-hmm.
because I had my apartment there. And I thought, it's time for a change. So I moved back to the Netherlands.
And what are your plans for the future?
Oh, the future is amazing, Nicolene. I'm writing a couple of things right now. One of them is a book about addiction. It's called Diaries of a Junkie. So I go through every story of me doing drugs and how it changed to be living in fantasy land, and how that created nightmare land as well.
Mm-hmm.
To help people with my story to transform their addiction. I'm also writing a book with my mother. I interviewed her when we went to South America.
Wow.
And the book is about 15 life stories that we had in common and how we perceived each of the stories differently. And instead of saying, hey, do you want to heal your family relationship? This is step 1, this is step 10, and this is the pyramid of change, whatever. Just teach them through the stories that we have in common, and then a couple of takeaway points at the end of every chapter. So these books are coming out in the second quarter of next year.
Wow, that's amazing. That's great. That's great. Oh, I really love how you transform each situation in a new one.
Yeah.
And how you did this with your mom. How is she doing compared to the time when she was really in a bad place?
She is doing wonderful. So basically, I think that the point of transformation was about 7 years ago. I went to a Tony Robbins seminar, and he told us the concept of effective blaming. So, usually we blame people for all the shit that's going on. Like, I blame you for destroying my family. I blame you for this and that. And he said that you must also blame them for the positive as well. So I called my mother at midnight after the Tony Robbins seminar. And I said, Mom, I was blaming you for all the shit that you went through. I was blaming you for destroying our family. I'm blaming you for this and that. But I said, you know what? I also blame you for my independence. I blame you that now I can speak English because I didn't speak English when I went to Australia. I blame you for my financial freedom. And she cried, and since that moment we reconnected, and I could see her change. I don't know if it's because of me or because her transformation, but since then she hasn't tried to kill herself, and now she is an expert in her field. So she's basically helping people who have been suicidal, who have been sexually abused, and she's helping these people to get through that. Not just as a psychiatrist, but a practical experience as well. And people can relate to that, like you are doing, sharing stories, and through the stories helping people to transform.
I mean, it's so lovely to hear your mother's story and your story. Yeah. It's so similar, basically. You're both turning a bad thing into something amazing. So that's that. It runs in the family.
Yes. Well, it took a while for her, 12 years.
Yeah, but still.
But still.
Yeah, but still, she was ready apparently at the time to
she helped me with my addiction when people were judging me, like, why do you do drugs? It's bad for you. Of course, people who do drugs, they know it's bad for them, but they're getting all these benefits out of it. That's why they do it. Yeah. And my mother, she helped me through that period. When I did it again, I was crying like, wow, I did it again. Like she said, it's okay, we get through it, because she has been through that pain as well.
Yeah. And I think that's so important that you feel that it's okay, because I mean, what I know from addiction, which is not a lot, but I know a bit, it's that when you condemn the other person for doing it again, it actually gives them more reason to do it again.
Exactly.
While when you just say, okay, it happened, you want to tell me about it? I'm going to sit here with you. You want to tell me about it? And then just accept the person that this happened, and then try again next time. And I mean, try again to be better next time. And I think that's the most crucial thing that you can do when people are dealing with addiction. So when you look back on this turbulent life, what would you like to share as a lesson with our viewers?
Okay, the first one is, don't live in a one-sided world. Like, there is no such thing as being positive all the time, thinking that everything is good and great. And the more you create these fantasies, the cockiness, the arrogance, the more you create nightmares. So whenever you encounter situations that you perceive as bad, look for the good sides in them. But also, if something is going really well, Make sure that you also balance yourself down, that you don't become cocky and arrogant, that you basically live a balanced life instead of living in fantasy land. And then you get all these accidents and nightmares to bring you back into balance. People say, hey, you have to be happy all the time. You have to be good all the time. You have to be spiritual all the time. And even in the media, a lot of examples are coming out that people who were perceived as being perfect, as spiritual, and then suddenly they're not. No. Even Tony Robbins, he's not positive all the time. And he says that himself. He has his good days, his bad days. We're all human beings.
Yeah.
Even the Dalai Lama, he's not perfect. He's not happy all the time. He's also just a human being. We're all human beings.
Yeah. Oh, I really love that insight. I think it's so important that you address this, because people who are positive or perceived as positive are always seen as, well, the happy people everywhere and all the time, which is not true, because life sucks sometimes. So then you have a really bad day, and it happens, and it is life.
Yeah, so those are kind of two tips in one. Don't live in fantasies and nightmares, and don't expect to be one-sided, because everything has two sides, the yin and the yang, the good, the bad. And then my third lesson will be not to compare yourself to other people. I was basically comparing myself to all of these gurus and people, but that's what they are. They're still people. You are you, I am myself. And nowadays, the younger generations, they're on the iPhones, the tablets, they're comparing their lives to other people. Yeah. And with that, you create the fantasies of how life is supposed to be, which creates humbling nightmares to bring you back into balance. So yeah, don't compare yourself to other people.
I love that. I think that's so important that you share this, because there are so many people, not just kids, adults as well, who are always comparing themselves to others when it comes to jobs, when it comes to houses, cars, I don't know, the kids' performances at school, anything to feel the competition and being unhappy, comparing themselves all the time. Thank you so much for this, and we will be sharing your social links, so people, I'm sure people will be reaching out to you to find you online and to meet with you, because I think you're an amazing person. Thank you so much, and we'll be in touch, definitely.
Thank you, Nicolene.